Dated Discussions, the show where we break down common old stereotypes pertaining to everyday issues by comparing them through youthfulness and wisdom. I'm your host, Amanda Jones, and today's episode is titled
Drugs, depression, delinquents.
where we answer the question, what is good exposure? Today we will dive into the pros and cons of the exposure of drugs and mental health in mainstream media, hearing both sides of the story from both boomers and Gen Zs. So let's welcome our first guest, Ivy Johnson. Ivy is a senior at Bayview High School here in Los Angeles who strongly believes that the explicit exposure of substance abuse, sex, and mental illness is essential in raising awareness and letting people learn to grow up on their own.
Hey, thank you so much for having me today. I've actually been a listener for quite some time now, so I'm very glad to be here today.
No, thank you. We're lucky to have such a good range of opinions in today's topic. Now, what sparked your interest in raising awareness on the exposure of a true reality in the media?
So, in the 9th grade, I came upon a show called 13 Reasons Why. After watching the show myself and hearing a lot of different opinions on it, I found the show to be really unrealistic in terms of representing mental illness and trauma as a teenager in the media.
Hey, it's Hannah. Hannah Baker.
The scary thing is that this show gained so much attention and deeply affected many people around the world. Upon researching it further, I found that there was an increase in teen suicide attempts in the wake of the show's release, which is really scary. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, the show is, and I quote, associated with the 28.9% increase in suicide rates among children and teenagers. I feel like this is an issue that we need to talk about as intimately as possible. On the other side of the coin, I also came across a show called Euphoria, which portrayed drug abuse, mental illness, and trauma as a teenager in a very realistic and educational manner. After seeing such contrast between the two shows, I found it extremely necessary to advise others to seek reality in things like this.
Wow, Ivy. Interesting. I'm glad you mentioned this HBO show, Euphoria, because our next guest has some strong opinions about the show as well. Everyone, please welcome the grandmother of 7 and mother of 3, Ohio State Senator, Miss Karen Klemecki.
Hello, Miss Jones. What an honor it is to be here. And yes, I too am delighted that Miss Johnson had brought up such a controversial topic. I mean, when it comes to television and the magazines and all the pop culture buzz, we are poisoning the minds of our youth. I mean, including our good friend here, Miss Ivy Johnson. Is there a reason you're raising awareness for the works of the devil himself?
Oh, all right. I sense a little bit of tension here, ladies. What do you have to say about that statement made by Miss Klemecki, Ivy?
I'm terribly sorry, Mrs. Klemecki, but I believe that you're mistaken. Yes, these topics are controversial and scary, but I still believe that there are very real issues among people my age that need to be talked about. Sometimes difficult subjects require difficult conversations.
My, Miss Johnson. Well, aren't we so lucky to be in the presence of such an educated young lady? I hate to burst your bubble, Miss Johnson, but it sounds like the devil's already inside you, okay? Children need to be coddled, babied, and guarded from the horrors of reality and society. That's how I became the proud senator of the state of Ohio myself.
Do you even hear yourself? How can you have such a condescending...
Well, aren't our guests just... lovely. And on to our next guest, someone with years of experience and loads of fact-based evidence. A personal friend of Dated Discussions and critically acclaimed author, Dr. Amy Patterson.
Well, hello everybody. My name is Dr. Amy Patterson, author of The Mind, the Body, the Soul, A Guide to Your Dreams. I'm here today to bring the facts to help our guests Ivy and Karen get to the bottom of this. Is the realistic exposure of society good for our youth? Or is the devil infesting their minds? Let's find out.
Good to have you here. I think a good question for everyone to go off is, how are these shows positively affecting teens?
I think that Euphoria really captures the teen experience because it shows how all of us are different. Everyone is going to have a different experience, and some experiences are positive and others are negative. For instance, there's a major character on the show named Lexi that does not party or do drugs like her peers. However, the temptation is still present for her, and she acknowledges it, especially in the wake of her sister. We all have different struggles that can't be categorized as easily as a lot of people think that they can.
Ivy Johnson is actually onto some very good points. Although the show is not recommended for anyone below the age of 17, this show provides the younger generation to be able to connect with their current reality, as this generation's rate of depression and anxiety have skyrocketed because of the abuse of technology, which have made teens more likely to feel isolated. However, this show has provided the opportunity to open conversations between adults and their children and between friends, as this show brings up realistic points as to how life is within that generation. This show is a great reminder to teens that no matter what they are feeling or going through, they are not alone. It is okay to confront it and talk about it.
Absolutely. Despite the subject matter being so heavy, Euphoria showcases real-life issues in a really realistic manner.
Ladies! Ladies! Let us not lose track of our morals here, okay? Teens are children, and will be until they graduate college. Are we forgetting that the devil is tightening his grip around children in today's world? And now they're just accepting it as proper exposure. How does this not equate to madness? Miss Patterson, is it?
Dr. Amy Patterson.
Okay, Dr. Amy Patterson. Alright, well, anyways, you love to speak so boldly about these benefits of the show Euphoria that has for all teenagers, but are you listening to the teenager here with us today? I mean, Miss Johnson mentions a character from the show, Miss Lexi, who is quite possibly the only important one on the show, but Lexi is innocent and pure and a true lady. I was a Lexi. Lexis are real. And look at me now. A senator. A mother. A friend.
I said that Lexi was a main character, but not the main character, and that she is just one example of the teen experience that is showcased within the show. With every Lexi, there's also a Rue, the actual main character, a teenager who's struggling with mental health and addiction.
You think because I went to rehab, I stayed clean?
I mean, ain't that the point?
Both need to be represented and respected in a healthy, uplifting manner because they're actual teenagers in these same situations.
Okay, thank you for all of that, ladies. Another pressing question I have is what do you all believe is the negative exposure that these two shows display?
When written in an exploitative manner, a lot of negative effects can actually happen. Going back to 13 Reasons Why, I had a friend who was so affected by the show that she relapsed after a year of being clean.
Although graphic pictures are more capturing, there are a great amount of negative effects which these can trigger. 13 Reasons Why is notorious for its infamous scene of Hannah Baker's suicide of her slitting her wrist within the bathtub. Although the scene captured the audience's attention, a scene like this can produce such a great amount of emotional arousal and therefore overproduce negative emotions. A scene with a great amount of blood and gore, with such an up-close viewing, especially seen at such a young age, can trigger mental health effects such as anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder, worse in some cases of mental health effects seen by veterans from their time in the war.
Now, why does everything have to be so morbid coming from y'all's generation? If you're crazy, you're crazy. That is just the way it is. You know, if I was so outspoken back in my day, I'd probably still be locked up in the loony bin, honey. How on earth are we sitting here, professionally, comparing war PTSD to a television show? Are things this serious? I'm just astonished.
I do believe that is the point our other guests are trying to make, Miss Klemecki. Senator. Ma'am.
That's because it is a really complex issue. The fact that people my age have experienced so much in our short lifetimes is really morbid, and that should not be the norm. We need to not shield others from these awful things, but instead show them in a constructed and well-rounded light. We can't dehumanize these people.
The amount of overexposure that the internet has provided teens is the most upsetting part of this all. We can no longer control what kids stumble upon and absorb, so we must use film and television to our advantage as a way to provide controlled sharing so that teens and young adults feel comfortable sharing what they're feeling and begin these open conversations. Why try to stop exposure? That is unpreventable. Well, rather, we should take the opportunity to provide people with an exposure that is healthy to open up their minds to what is going on right beneath their noses.
All right, looks like we're out of time. Thank God. And thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Data Discussions. Please give a big round of applause to our guests. We are so thankful they could be here today.
Thank you so much for having me today.
If you guys can all remember to go buy my book.
Thank you all. I don't believe in climate change.
And as we always say, don't trust Fox News. We'll see you next Wednesday. Thank you, everybody.
I tell everyone I love to at least try and change.